Hi everyone, Petrik here. So it has been a while since I posted a book review, and this will probably be a quick review, but I recently read this incredible indie fantasy novel, and I just want to spotlight this a bit more. So I'm talking about The Price of Fear by Miles Lyon, and this one is the first book in the Wretch trilogy featuring this iconic cover art by Jeff Brand. Although I did say that this is an indie fantasy, a self-published fantasy novel, it won't be that way, I think, early next year, if I'm not mistaken, because this has been picked up by Saga Press and also Michael Joseph to be traditionally published. So yeah, the success of this one has been pretty rapid, and I'm curious. So well, I wanted to read this one, and I end up enjoying this quite a lot. So let's talk about The Price of Fear. So this one, for those of you who don't know, actually features a framing narrative. So what's a framing narrative? Just in case you don't know, this is when the story revolves around this narration, whether it's done through interview or diaries of this particular main character telling their stories to the interviewer or somebody else, or maybe a chronicler. So this was popularized in modern fantasy by the Kingkiller Chronicle by Petrik and maybe a Blood Song by Anthony Ryan. Just some examples, some popular examples. And I am actually a big fan of framing narrative, and Zebi Steele also did the same with his series. This is another indie and self-published fantasy series that I'm really looking forward to catch up on, because I have enjoyed the ones that I have read. I really enjoyed. So yeah, looking forward to that as well. But The Price of Fear, I think the best way to actually pitch this one would be Empire of the Vampire, again, framing narrative story by J. Kristoff, made with the magic in the manga or anime Bleach by Tite Kubo. I know, what a combination, right? I did not expect that, and I don't think anyone has actually mentioned that this book, The Price of Fear, is pretty much Empire of the Vampire meets Bleach. I think people have been calling this Empire of the Vampire meets Deadpool. I don't actually see a lot of resemblance on that, maybe on the jokes, I guess. But when it comes to the narrative, the magic system, and the tone of the world, it really reminded me a lot of Empire of the Vampire and also the magic in Bleach. So yeah, the story, just like a mini framing narrative, how it begins is that the main character, Azrael, is pretty much is about to be executed, just like on the cover art. And the interviewer needs to find out why he did the actions that he was accused of, like killing the prince. And of course, Azrael will be telling the story that leads to that particular action to the interviewer. And that's pretty much the main premise. I don't know about you, but in general, I just don't see that many framing narrative in science fiction and fantasy in comparison to the standard multiple epic fantasy stories, the one that features multiple POV characters told in third person. I think that's the one that I've encountered the most. Not that I'm complaining, I love those as well. But in comparison from my experience, framing narrative is actually so much more fewer. And I'm always happy to try a framing narrative story, and I'm really glad that I tried The Price of Fear. This is definitely a grimdark fantasy novel. There were a lot of morally gray characters, so if that's not to your liking, I don't think The Price of Fear will be for you. But there are some things that might click with a lot of people here. If you like grimdark, just like me, I think there's a good chance you will end up enjoying this one. At least you will end up enjoying this one. It's even more, of course, if you love framing narrative told in first person, because that's what you will get in The Price of Fear. But for me, the main highlight of this book is definitely Azrael, the main character, and also his voice. I like hearing how confident he is in many things, even though sometimes this is used to actually disguise his fear. Yeah, well, sometimes due to the story, the weapon that he uses is actually called the Wretch. So why did I mention Bleach in the beginning of this video? So the magic here, the Wretch in particular, there are several magics, not magic system, but there were several magics in The Price of Fear, and of course the Wretch trilogy. But the one that the main character used, Azrael, is pretty much Zenbon Sakura Kageyoshi from Bleach. If you don't know, this is a Byakuya's first Bankai. And I remember back when I was in high school watching this for the first time, I was just mind blown by how cool and amazing it was. Seriously, if you have watched or read Bleach, then you will know what I'm talking about. Kurosaki Ichigo meeting Byakuya and battling Byakuya for the first time, and then he unleashed that Senbon Sakura Kageyoshi. It's just absolutely incredible. Now when Azrael, the wretch, definitely unleashed his magic for the first time, immediately in my mind, I just thought of, wow, all these jagged flying knives, it reminded me a lot of Zenbon Sakura Kageyoshi, except that this one is a more grim and twisted version of that Bankai from Bleach. And I just went along with it. That's what was in my mind when I was reading The Price of Fear. It's just so cool. You will actually see that happening really early in the early stage of the book. So it is not a spoiler to actually talk about the magic in The Price of Fear. I will say that it is one of the main appeal of the book. So when I read that, I immediately thought that, you know what, this is probably just my imagination. And then when I actually finished, I decided I will have to put this on my review. It is definitely Bleach inspired, but Miles Lyon, and then he told me that Bleach is one of the main inspiration, and I'm just, what the? So I wasn't just imagining this. This is true. But yeah, I think that's a huge appeal for me because I used to be a huge fan of Bleach. You know, the big three of manga, Naruto, Bleach, and also One Piece back then. And I think that's immediately caught my attention a lot when I was reading the magic for the first time. But again, back to the main point here, Azrael and also the narration is definitely the best strength of The Price of Fear. I think in many ways, this will remind you a lot of Empire of the Vampire, understandably. I think it is actually one of the main inspirations behind this book as well. There were, of course, several POV characters in The Price of Fear, and the book overall is, in my opinion, it is well written. It is definitely grimdark fantasy. If there's one thing that did not click with me as much, this is not about the pacing. I actually really enjoyed the pacing in The Price of Fear, but it is the jokes. Now, jokes and also comedy, this is a very hard thing to land with readers. Your miles may vary. Some of the jokes in the book definitely landed on me, but I think there were a few sections where I think the sex jokes and also the crude jokes definitely ran a bit too long to my liking. I think that those few sections definitely ended up hindering the pacing a bit for me, but that's really pretty much the minor issue that I had. The battles in this one were absolutely incredible. I love the battles in The Price of Fear. The way the author utilized the high fantastical magic in The Price of Fear were brilliant. I think we've seen display of gravities, again, jagged knives being thrown around, and also some things that I think better for you to find out for yourself. But let's just say that Howron the Dread, the main villain of The Price of Fear, again, that's not a spoiler. Howron the Dread here, I think his magic is absolutely terrifying. I love how much of it actually connects with Azrael's magic, which utilize fear. But yeah, that's all I would say about this. Let's just leave it at it was badass. So yeah. Overall, I think the ending also was quite satisfying. I can definitely say that the cover art, I think it was such a brilliant move to actually put this as the cover. There were actually plenty of Easter eggs in the cover art here. We just don't know until we finish reading the book. That's the kind of cover art that I actually really like. Like, you might think that it is a spoiler, but it is not. You might think after you read the book, you might call that a spoiler, but for those of us who haven't read the book, it is not. You won't know what's going on inside this artwork if you haven't read the book, all the details, all the context, and all that. And yeah, I enjoyed The Price of Fear. This is the first book in a trilogy, and I cannot wait to find out what's going to happen next after the ending, after the up and down, also the twists and turns that happens near the end of the book. Yeah, there were three or four key action sequence, and I enjoyed them all. The beginning, the middle part, which is probably the best section, and also the ending. The ending was, yeah, it was memorable. I think Miles Lyon did a great job in ending The Price of Fear memorably. I really enjoyed. And yeah, that's pretty much my review, spoiler-free review on The Price of Fear by Miles Lyon, the first book in the Reg trilogy. Again, as I said, this was an enjoyable grimdark fantasy novel with a framing narrative. To conclude this review, let me just say that if you enjoyed Empire of the Vampire, grimdark, framing narrative, you cannot go wrong with trying this book, The Price of Fear, or the entire Red trilogy. With the publication, the traditional publication of The Price of Fear coming next year, I believe the sequel will probably happen in the same year or the year after. But I will argue that it is safe to say to put this on your radar to read as soon as possible. The success of this one, the success this has been getting the past 6 months has been insane, and I think it is quite well deserved. And yeah, that's pretty much my reviews on The Price of Fear. Do let me know your thoughts about this book if you have read it. If you have not, do let me know whether you're intrigued to try this book or not. I find it really refreshing to read such a compelling grimdark fantasy novel. Again, a new grimdark fantasy novel again. And yeah, that's pretty much it for me today. As always, thank you so much for watching, and thank you for your support. Bye-bye. Lastly, I want to say thank you so much once again to all my patrons who keep on supporting me.